We're
Okay,
live.
beautiful. All right. So, welcome in, Sam. Thanks for being our guinea pig for this. Again, I appreciate your cooperation. But so for tonight, we're gonna go through essentially everything on your character sheet and then navigating Roll20 and sort of like the basics of how to play. And if you have any questions at all, this is going to be very informal, just back and forth. So interrupt me whenever. Um, this is all for you. So first things first, if you can look, I don't know if you're watching my shared screen there, if that's showing up for you.
I see a fourth screen saying watch stream.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
would just,
button.
yeah, I would just click that so you can see exactly where I'm clicking and everything, and we can all be looking at the same stuff.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. So at this point, you've made your way into the Discord. Obviously, you found us. You want to play some D&D, and you've got your link to Roll20. So the first step is if anyone wants to play D&D, you're gonna need a link to our Roll20 game. So you just at me or at WeWoo or anybody will get you the link. And I just want to show you what that screen's gonna look like. So you're gonna see on your Roll20 page. I'm gonna go real slow, real basic kind of stuff. Um, so you're going to see your screen, and if you're brand new, you're just going to see this Tea Leaf Adventuring Company D&D game right here. I have a few other campaigns like Tavern Tours and stuff. But if you click on this, it's going to bring you to our page. You can see all the players. Everyone who's a DM has the GM mark there. The real meat and potatoes, though, is when you launch the game. So every time I say, okay, get on Roll20, you're just going to launch the game, and this is the screen that I want you to see. Now, my screen's going to look a little bit different than yours because I have the DM mode on. But for the most part, this is what you're going to see.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
Now, you have a few tabs up here. Actually, I can join as player. And this is going to be exactly what you see. Let's do that. Um, so right off the bat, so Roll20 is our virtual tabletop. So you can imagine D&D is usually played by a group of people sitting at a table like that one, rolling dice. They have their character sheets, physical copies in hand. Obviously, you've got players from all around the country and all around the world, actually. So this is sort of like the computer simulating our table, and Discord acts as our, you know, video and voice. Um, so a few important things to look at when we're talking Roll20. Number one, you've got these tabs on the right. So this box right here is your chat right here. So you can type in whatever, and it's going to show up as all that. All of your dice rolls are going to end up right there. So for the most part, when you're playing the game, you want to be on this chat tab right here. Okay.
Okay.
You've also got a journal tab. This is probably your second most important one. And this one's going to have all of the information regarding the campaign that's relevant to you. So I've got stat blocks. There's a lot of DM stuff that you're going to see. There's stores and handouts. There's NPCs. There's information about the campaign. There's loot. There's maps, which is really cool. You can see like the world map and all that. Very cool stuff. Um, but the most important thing that's going to be right here is your character sheet. And so I have character sheets sort of at the bottom. New applicants can grab a blank one. But we've got yours right here. So when you're ready to open up your character sheet, you're just going to come to your journal tab, click on your name, and it pops up in the second window. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Now you can resize this window. You can click and drag it, move it around, whatever. If you're rocking a multiple monitor type situation, you can actually pop this out into its other own tab and move that around wherever you need to. Um, One trick that I really love that's super helpful is because obviously if I have this big character sheet and all this information, I can't see what's going on in the game, right? There's a whole screen behind there that I want to be able to pay attention to. So if you just double click your name, it minimizes like that and kind of goes transparent. So typically what I'll do is I'll sort of double click and hide it when I'm watching, and then when it's my turn and I need to roll some dice, double click it again, it opens right up. So
Okay,
pretty nifty
sweet.
trick right there. Um, Before we get into the nitty gritty of the character sheet, there's a few other tabs in Roll20. So we've got our chat, art gallery. I wouldn't worry too much about. You've got your journal here, and then this third tab is the compendium. Now this is sort of like a built-in Wikipedia thing all about D&D. So you can literally search just about anything related to D&D in this compendium, and it's going to give you some information. So if I wanted to type, I don't know, Fireball, right? The classic Fireball spell. I type it in, boom, it's got Fireball. And you can click on that link, and it gives you all the spell information, everything right there. Say I want to look up like a ancient black dragon. Uh, Boom. There's Ancient Black Dragon stat block. Everything is at your fingertips, so it's really, really convenient. It's one of the reasons I love Roll20.
So
Um,
one thing here, Luke. I don't know if you want to go
yeah,
back to Fireball.
yeah,
I think he's playing Rogue, so not super important. But for those, you can see that they have the basic rules 2024 listed and also Player's Handbook. For ours, we're just using the basic Player's Handbook. We are not using the
good,
2024 rule set.
good catch. Yeah. So
Okay.
unfortunately, yeah, Wizards is being greedy. But everything you want is gonna, like Jen said, just have this player's handbook. You want to avoid anything with the 2024 on it because we're old school.
Okay.
Um, that being said, too, if you are building a character and you want to look up Rogue, I think Nudis is a rogue, right? So we're gonna look up
Yeah.
Rogue, and you can get all the information about rogues right there at your fingertips. So and it's got pretty pictures and everything. So super super useful. I highly encourage, especially starting off, spend some time in here, search some things. It's there for your use. We've got music tabs. There's macro tabs we can get into, and then general settings. I will say I do love Roll20. I've been using it for about 10 years now. It can be a little clunky sometimes. So if you find your performance isn't great, spend some time in the settings, and you can kind of adjust graphic settings and all that too. Um, Again, all user interface stuff, and you can customize that to whatever works for you specifically. Um, the other section of Roll20 that I want you to look at is this top left. You've got some tools here. Again, you've got settings. Um, You've got a select tool, so this is mostly if you're going to be clicking and dragging things like your token. Let me just grab Nudis right there.
I was gonna say, do you
Uh,
have a map from last week? Maybe you can bring up.
I'd have to go to the
Okay.
DM mode, which I can do. Stand by. I think I deleted the map from last week, so I might have to steal a random map here. Um, Here, let's all go to this map, which shouldn't look too familiar to anybody. Um, but basically, all of the 95% of your maps are going to be on a grid. And so it's almost like a board game, right? Where I have a token, and your movement is basically determined by the grid. So each space in the grid represents 5 square feet. So if I want to move 30 feet, I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares, right? Um, there's other cool tools. There's measurement tools. So if I'm like, how far is 30 feet? You can click that and measure that. You can go diagonal, all that sort of cool stuff. You can measure squares. You can measure circles, all sorts of really, really fun, cool, cool stuff like that. That's super useful. Um, there's also a dice roller here at the very bottom. So if I say, hey, roll me 2d6, you can go to d6, click 2, go to our chat, it rolled 2d6. So all right there at your fingertips. Very, very good stuff. Any questions so far?
Um, it'd probably be more along the lines of how do I interpret all the stats on my character page?
Okay, so let's dive into the nitty-gritty of your character sheet, okay? Now, we um we have a finished character sheet here. Um but let me walk through individually what everything means, okay?
Okay.
So right at the top, excuse me, obviously we've got your character name, Nudis Nidus. I absolutely love it. It's a great name.
Thank you.
Um, you've got your class and your level, so you're level 1 rogue starting off. Your background, you chose criminal. Your race, we're picking goblin. Your alignment and your experience points. Okay, so this is sort of your general character sheet. Character in a snapshot is this top box right here. Um, Again, your class is sort of the bulk of what your character does, be it a rogue, a wizard, a fighter, a druid, that sort of thing. So basically, what your character's role is determined by your class. Um, your race, whether it be a goblin or a human or an elf or a dwarf, all that sort of stuff, um, basically determines what your character looks like, and then a couple of different races will have different racial bonuses. Um, like elves are generally more dexterous, more lithe, a little bit more in tune with magic. Goblins tend to be a little bit more chaotic and a little more sneaky and devious kind of so different bonuses there. Your background is essentially what was your character's life like before they decided to become an adventurer or become a hero or whatever. And so you get a couple minor bonuses from your background we'll talk about. um, your alignment is a bit of an outdated mechanic, but it's fun, and they included it in 5th edition because it's a relic of older editions. Very rarely does your alignment matter, but there's a few spells where it actually does, and so I'm happy you picked one. But that's that 3x3 grid of lawful, neutral, chaotic
Yeah.
versus good, neutral, evil, and you can have those 9 possible combinations. So chaotic neutral fits the goblin rogue vibe perfectly. Um, this is an experience driven game. And so at the end of every successful mission, I'm going to be rewarding you experience points. Um, I go completely on the honor system. I expect you as the player to keep track of your own experience points because I've got 30 plus different characters involved in this, and it's way too much for me to handle by myself. So you've got one character, we're going to expect you to keep track of your experience, and we're going to expect you to keep track of your level ups. So what I typically will do is I encourage people to put like 0 out of 300, and then whenever you get up to that point, you level up, right? If you're
Okay.
ever like, when's the next time I level up? Everybody wants to level up, right? You want to get more powerful. If you go over here to your journal and you go to handout and links and then character advancement, it's got this whole table right here. So to get from level 1 to level 2, you need 300 experience. To get from level 2 to level 3, you need 900, and so on. If you ever forget where that handout is, you're like, where the heck, how would I know when to level up? You can go to the compendium, search level up. And, or, let's see. I'm trying to get it to give me character advancement. Yeah, so I guess character advancement is what we're going to need. Um, and that's going to give you that exact same table right there. Do 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 do. Okay. Um, okay. So your character sheet is basically the mathematical nuts and bolts DNA of your character, right? So this is D&D is a game of make believe and imagination and, sort of goofy stuff. But there's also important, there's rules and stuff. And so you need stats, you need numbers and math for the calculations to make sure that everybody's playing by the same rules and everything's fair. So that's where this character sheet comes in. Um, there's a lot of numbers and a lot of information, and it seems really overwhelming at first, but I promise you, once it's all set up properly, it's very, very simple and very easy to use. Um, so I want to walk you through what everything means, how we got those numbers, and then where to click to make the macros roll in the chat for D20, okay?
Hmm.
So first and foremost, the most important numbers on your character sheet are these 6 numbers on the left-hand side right here. These are called your attribute scores. And these are your strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma scores. And so these numbers basically determine what your character is good at and what they're not so good at. They're the stats of your character essentially. If you've played any sort of RPG or any sort of similar tabletop game, a lot of games sort of use this stat attribute system to represent what your character is good at. In D&D 5th edition, typically the higher the score, well, always, the higher the score, the better you are at those related things, and the lower the score, the worse you are at those things. No one character is good at everything, and so typically you kind of play to your strengths, and you have some that are really good and some that aren't as good, right? And that just kind of makes it fun and balanced, and everybody has their strengths and weaknesses and all that sort of stuff. Um, so Fifth edition has your stats divided into these 6, and you can further divide those, the top 3 being your physical stats, strength, dexterity, constitution, the bottom 3 being your mental stats, your intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Um, so strength is pretty straightforward. I would think it's how physically strong you are, how hard you punch something in the face, how heavy of a boulder you can lift up, all of that sort of stuff, how athletic you are, how fast you can run. Well, I shouldn't say that. How, you know, forget the running thing. That was a bad example. Um, Again, pretty self-explanatory. Dexterity is how nimble you are, how agile you are, how good with your hands you are, how sneaky you are, that sort of thing. Constitution is how physically your fortitude, how hardy you are. Constitution determines how much hit points you have, how resistant you are to poisons and things of that sort of nature. It's more of like a physical bulk sort of stat. Um, Intelligence is I like to think of intelligence versus wisdom. There's a lot of debate amongst the D&D community. Intelligence is more book smarts, whereas wisdom is more street smarts or observation. So intelligence is sort of an academic understanding of the world and a very by the book sort of way of learning. So an intelligent character will learn new things really quickly and be able to recall things and figure things out very quickly. Whereas a wise character, it's more on intuition and feeling. So they're more observant, they're more in tune with their surroundings. They're able to pick up on whether or not someone's lying, things like that. That would be wisdom. And then charisma is sort of your force of will, how likable your character is, how influential they are. Sometimes can be interpreted how attractive they are, how easygoing they are. Also could be how intimidating they are, how scary they are, how fearful and imposing they can be. So those 6 stats sort of define the bulk of how your character functions. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so you can see there's 2 numbers here on each of them. There's the sort of larger number in the little circle, and then the smaller, the lesser numerical value number that's bigger in the box, okay? So your score, which is in these circles, is going to then determine a modifier, which is this number in the big box. And the way D&D works is whatever your modifier is for a given attribute determines your bonuses, positive or negative, for those associated rolls. So right now, Nudis has a dexterity score of 16, which means his dexterity modifier is +3. So anytime Nudis is going to make a roll involving dexterity, he's going to add +3 to that roll, which is pretty awesome.
Okay.
Conversely, with a score of 8, that is Nudis's weakness, as he's not very physically strong. So any roll involving strength is going to have -1 to that roll. Make
Okay.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way we determine what these numbers are is in this particular game, we're using what's called a standard array system. And so everybody starts with the same numbers, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8. You can then assign those numbers wherever you want. And then you add your racial bonuses. So that's going to be +2 to one score and -1 to a different score. So in this particular case, we took our 15 in intelligence. We took our 14 in constitution. No, we took our 14 in dexterity, and then we put +2 to that, so we got the 16. 13 went to constitution, which got +1 to make it 14. Then we got our 12 in charisma, 10 in wisdom, 8 in strength. Make sense? I know that was kind
Yeah.
of a lot all at once. Okay. Um, I sort of took the numbers that you had there originally, and just sort of tweaked them over to the 5th edition style based off of what I thought you were prioritizing. So again, Nudis is very quick on his feet, very nimble, very agile, very dexterous, and also very book smart, intelligent, and it's got a decent amount of constitution. Um, and then charisma, wisdom, and strength are more on the weaker side, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah.
And again, no one character is going to be strong at or good at everything, and so this is honestly a really good starting array of stats. Um, one thing people often ask is, well, how do I make these numbers higher, right? If these numbers are higher and that makes me stronger, how do I make them higher? As you level up, there's going to be occasional opportunities for those scores to increase, as well as magic items can sometimes give you bonuses to those attribute scores, although that's typically on the rarer side. If you find a magic item that gives you bonuses to your attribute scores, it's considered a very powerful magic item because these scores are so important. All right,
Okay.
any questions so far?
When I roll, will it automatically add what needs to be added based on my stats? Or do I have to remember to kind of factor that in, like the +3?
So the beauty of Roll20 in this character sheet is that it does all the math for you. So since we've set this up ahead of time, it's going to automatically add all of those modifiers accordingly where it's appropriate, which is amazing. So as long as you do your homework and set this up correctly, all the math and the what numbers go where automatically roll as long as you're clicking in the right spot. So it's really, really simple and straightforward.
Sweet.
Um, so for example, just to give you the most basic roll, if I said, hey Nudis, roll me a dexterity check, just all you have to do is click on this word dexterity. And nat 20, look at that. It's like I planned it. So you can see, if I hover over this number with my cursor, I'm pointing at my monitor like you guys can see my but if you hover over this, it's going to break down exactly what happened, right? So I rolled 1d20. 95% of the rolls you're going to make are based off of a d20 roll. So 1 through 20, 20 being the best, 1 being the worst. So on that 20-sided roll, I rolled a 20, and then it added 3, which is your dexterity modifier, for a total of 23. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, for example, if I wanted to roll a strength check, do you have your character sheet open right now?
I just have the Discord open at the
Okay.
moment.
Okay. So if you wanted to roll a strength check, all you'd have to do is click on this word strength. And there we can see I rolled a 4 minus 1 gave me the result of 3. Okay.
Okay.
Now, you might be wondering, why are there two numbers? Why is there 23 and 11, 3 and 2, right? Um, Whenever we roll an attack or a check or a saving throw, whenever we make a d20 roll, there exists in 5th edition called advantage and disadvantage, okay? So a situation where you have advantage on something is obviously when your character is more likely to succeed. There's something giving him some sort of benefit that's going to make him more likely to succeed. When you're rolling with advantage, you're going to take the bigger of the two numbers, right? So in this case, we take the 23. If you're rolling with disadvantage, there's something that's making you less likely to succeed. There's something actively hindering you, making it harder. So you're going to roll twice and take the lower of the two numbers. So in this case, say the strength, we would take the 2 instead of the 3. It's sort of our convention in Roll20 and in this game. If you're just doing a straight roll without advantage or disadvantage, we only pay attention to that number on the left. Okay? So
Okay.
the majority of the time, you're just going to pay attention to that number on the left. But if I call for advantage or disadvantage, that's when the second number is relevant. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. Now, so we've got our attribute scores, we've got our modifiers. So again, this 8 modifier gives us -1, 16 gives us +3. There's a formula for that, but just know that if you change these numbers, typically on the even scores, your modifiers increase, okay? So like this 15 still has a +2, but as soon as you bump it up to a 16, it's a +3. So you're kind of shooting for even numbers. The number 10, so like your wisdom, is considered average. So a score of 10 in any attribute is considered average. So that gives you a modifier of 0, which means you're not good at it, but you're not bad at it. Anything above 10, you're considered above average. Anything below 10, you're considered below average. So that's why where you can see the difference between the positive modifiers and the negative modifiers is all based off the number 10. 20 is the highest you can get without any magical bonus. So if you were the strongest human alive within a world without magic, your strength score would be 20. Okay? If you were the smartest human alive without magic, your intelligence score would be 20. Um, Magical items and things like that can give you temporarily can sometimes get you above 20, which is almost like a superhuman stat. But again, very very rare, very tough to get, but certainly possible. So right off the bat, we can see Nudis has a score of 16 in dexterity. So if 20 is the highest we can get, a score of 16 is well above average. So Nudis is pretty darn agile, pretty darn dexterous. So that's pretty cool. And that's sort of how your character is sort of rising above the rest and kind of becoming a hero, is because typically the majority of your attribute scores are above average, which makes you better than the average, you know, person in this world, right? You're almost born to be an adventurer. Um, these attributes these modifiers then fill out everywhere else in your character sheet, and you can see all these different numbers and everything. So it's a lot, but we'll go through step by step. I'm trying to think of how I want to handle this. I'd like to talk about proficiency next, okay? So when we talk about things that your character is good at, it used to be way super complicated, and there was all sorts of charts and tables and various modifiers, and it was a nightmare to keep track of what bonuses went where. But in 5th edition, they've made it really, really easy, and there's something called a proficiency bonus, okay? And basically, the way this breaks down is things that you are proficient in, you add your proficiency bonus to. That simple. Your proficiency bonus is right here. It starts off as 2, and that's going to slowly increase as you level up. So the things you are good at, you get better at as you level up. Your proficiencies come from basically your previous life, like your criminal background will give you some proficiencies, your class will give you some proficiencies, sometimes your race will give you proficiencies, and then sometimes you get to learn new ones or pick up new ones. But anywhere that we are marked as proficient, which is kind of represented by these little check marks, you're going to add +2. So for example, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but if we look at this dexterity saving throw, we have it checked off. And so you can kind of mentally check that the math is right. So it's dexterity based, so I get this +3, and then I'm proficient in it, so I get this +2. So 3 + 2 gives us the grand total score of 5 right there.
Okay.
Just like intelligence, we've got a +2 intelligence modifier. The +2 proficiency bonus gives us the +4 there.
Interesting. Okay.
Pretty straightforward. Your proficiency bonus is also going to get added to like your weapon attacks and things like that. So again, it's a very important number. You typically want to be relying on things that you're proficient in to be as optimized as possible. Okay, let's talk about weapons, health, that sort of thing, right? You want to you're playing D&D, you're an adventurer, you want to go and fight some orcs and dragons and stuff, right? So the bulk of that sort of information is going to be in this middle column right here. And we've got some important numbers relating to combat. The first one that I'm going to note is your health points, right? So just like any sort of video game, anything like that, you have a certain pool of how much damage you can take. And this number is determined by your constitution modifier. So you have a d8 hit die, so we take 8 plus 2 gives us a total of 10, right? Whenever you take damage, you subtract it from that current total. You can kind of keep track right there. Whenever you get healed, you heal for that much damage, but you can't go over your maximum typically. If you reach 0, you are knocked unconscious, and then you're fighting for your life. We'll talk about that in a little bit. You have 3 very important numbers up here. Your speed is determined by your race. Again, we were talking about moving on a grid, how many squares you can move. So you have 30 feet of speed, which is 6 squares per turn. Your initiative determines how fast you are to respond. It also helps to determine what order we take our turns in. So D&D is a turn-based game. So at the beginning of every encounter, we're going to have every player and every creature roll initiative, and then you just go in descending numerical order. So high initiative means you're acting before other people. You kind of get the jump on them. Your armor class. This number represents how hard you are to hit. It's determined. So say I'm an orc and I want to swing my battle axe at Nudis, right? Typically what's going to happen is I'm going to roll an attack to hit, and the number I'm trying to beat is your armor class, okay?
Ah, okay.
So your armor class is determined by a couple of things. Number one, obviously, it's determined by what kind of armor you're wearing. So typically, the heavier duty armor you're wearing, the higher your armor class. It's also sometimes determined by your dexterity score. So in this particular case, we can break this down. Again, 10 being average, 10 is the base. We've got leather armor on somewhere down here, which is going to give us +1. And then our dexterity modifier is +3. So 10 +1 +3 is going to give us this 14. That's where your armor class is. Okay.
Okay.
When I'm rolling to hit against you, I'm trying to meet or exceed your armor class. So if I have my orc swinging his axe and I roll a 15, that would be a hit. And then I would roll damage. I'd tell you how much damage you took. Then you're going to reduce that amount of damage from your current hit points. Okay?
Okay.
That's pretty much the general basic thing. When you're going to hit something back, when it's your turn and you want to stab that orc right back, because how dare he hit me with his axe, your attacks are going to be located right down here in this central attacks and spellcasting thing right here. So based off of your starting equipment, it looks like you've got a short sword, blah, 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 a short bow, and a dagger. So you can see it's got the +5 to hit bonus right there, as well as the damage already made for you, which is the beauty of Roll20 and all these macros. So again, going through the math, just sort of mentally checking, our short sword, we're proficient in it, so we're going to get the +2, and it's using our dexterity modifier, so 3 + 2 is +5 to hit. So if I click on this short sword attack, you can see it rolls 2 dice. We're going to pay attention to the one on the left. So you can see right here, I rolled a 14, and then I added the 5. It bumps us up to a 19. So your 19 is your roll to hit, and then right underneath, it's automatically going to roll the damage. So we rolled a d6 plus our dex, so 1 + 3 gives us 4 points of damage. So really, if you just said, I want to stab something with my short sword or shoot it with my short bow, all you got to do is click these macros, and it's going to do all the math, everything for you. It shows up right there, and I can interpret that and get all the information I need right off of that. So
Sweet.
again, a lot of intricate I call it intricate, a lot of math and calculations going into it. But functionally, you just got to know I got to click on that short sword button to attack, and it does everything for me. Pretty straightforward. Um, when we were talking about your when you get to 0 hit points. So if you get to 0 or below, you then fall unconscious and you have these death saving throws. Basically, it represents your character fighting for their life. Um, on your turn, if you're currently fighting for your life, you just click this little death save button, and all it is just a straight d20 roll. If you roll a 10 or above, you mark it as a success, just like that. If you roll a 9 or below, that's a failure. If you get 3 successes, you live. You just knocked out for a little while and you wake up a little bit. If you get 3 failures, you are dead. And
Oh
death
no.
death does happen. It's rare, but we do have characters die in this game, and there's always there's rules and ways we handle death in this game, but just know that your character is not invincible, right? If there's no threat of death, then the adventures don't have meaning. So just know that Nudis may meet his untimely end at some point in the game, but if you're cautious and rely on your friends, most of the time things work out okay.
Okay.
um, let's talk about saving throws. Okay, so this box right here is another really important thing. So when I'm talking about attacks and damage and things like that, if you think in this magical world of spells and monsters and things like that, sometimes there's effects or situations where it doesn't really matter what armor I have on, whether or not I'm gonna live or die, right? Um, so if you think about like a giant dragon breathing fire at you, doesn't matter you're wearing leather armor or plate armor, you're wearing robes, you're in that middle of that fire breath. And so situations like that, or another example is say I'm playing some evil necromancer and I cast a spell to like charm you and bewitch your mind and make you fight on my side. Again, doesn't matter what kind of armor you have, it's all about how your brain works. Those types of situations are determined by what are called saving throws, okay? So you can see there's a saving throw associated with each stat. Okay? So in the case of, say, dodging out of the way of a dragon's fiery breath, I might call for a dexterity saving throw, in which case you're going to go to your saving throws box, click on dexterity. There, we're rolling like fire tonight. You rolled a 24 on your dexterity saving throw. Okay?
Okay.
Say I'm trying to bewitch you and control your mind. I might call for a wisdom saving throw, in which case you click on your wisdom saving throw button, and there you go. Okay, that one you might have failed, right? So when I call for a saving throw, typically I have a number in my head or on my monster side of things that you don't know that you're trying to beat. And if you roll higher than that, you succeed. If you roll lower than that, you fail and obviously suffer the penalties for failing. Um, so that's saving throws in a nutshell. And again, every class is proficient in 2 out of the 6 saving throws. So you can see as a rogue, you are proficient in dexterity and intelligence saving throws. So that's why we're going to add that proficiency bonus to those 2. That's why those 2 are checked off. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay. Combat is only part of D&D, right? You're not always going to be in a dungeon fighting things. Although I will say Tea Leaf Adventure Company tends to be pretty combat heavy. There's situations where, even in combat sometimes, where I'm not actively trying to attack something or hit something, or I'm not defending against something. I'm trying to do literally anything else, right? Um, D&D has given you a handful of skills right here that are all in this very long skill box, okay? And whenever you're trying to do something, literally anything, I'm trying to swing from this chandelier and make it over to the other side of the balcony, or I'm trying to interpret these strange magical runes on this door to see if it's gonna, have some sort of trap on it. You're gonna roll what's called a skill check, okay? And realistically, um, I'd say functionally, almost any action that you are trying to do can be categorized under one of these skill checks, okay? So whenever you are playing the game and it's your turn, and you say Nudis wants to try to do something, I don't really want you to worry about what skill check is here. Again, you can kind of pay attention to which ones you're proficient in and sort of lean towards your strengths. I always advise that. But realistically, the way the game is supposed to work is you tell me what you're trying to do. I will then tell you to give me the appropriate check. You click on that word. I get the dice roll. I tell you what happens, and the story keeps going, right? So in the first example I gave, I said, let's say Nudis is trying to swing from the chandelier over to the other side of the balcony. I would say, okay, make me an acrobatics check. You'd click on this acrobatics button, gives you the number 6. Okay, maybe you tried and jumped but slipped and fell, and now you're falling into the middle of the dining hall, and there's a bunch of enemies surrounding you, right? That's kind of how the story works, right? Um, Again, skills are things that you can be proficient in, and so you can see certain skills that have the check marks associated with them, and every time we have that check mark, we are adding our proficiency bonus, so that's all of that right there. And then each skill has an associated attribute with it, so you can see in the lighter writing parentheses next to it, acrobatics is based off of your dexterity, deception's based off of your charisma, investigation's based off of your intelligence, and so on. And so again, Roll20 smart enough to take those modifiers, apply them here, take the ones you have checked off, apply your proficiency bonus, and do all that math for you. So if
Okay.
you're
Sweet.
trying to sneak up on the guard and assassinate him, something like a rogue might do, you're gonna just click on that stealth, and it's gonna roll all that and do all the math right there for you.
Awesome.
Pretty cool stuff. So again, knowing where to click, if you're going to make an attack, you click in this middle box. If you're going to make a saving throw, you click on the saving throw box. If you're going to make a skill check, you click on the appropriate skill right here. That's honestly 80% of what you need to know on this character sheet is these 4 boxes right here. This is where you're going to spend most of your time, okay?
Okay.
As far as actually playing and clicking and doing that sort of thing. There's all sorts of other information here. You have tool proficiencies, which are kind of rare, but again, miscellaneous thieves tools, things like that are going to show up here. Armor language proficiency show up here. You have your inventory right here. Again, I kind of go on an honor system. We don't have to worry about encumbrance or weight or anything. But if you pick something up or you get something, I'm going to trust that you're putting it in your inventory and keeping track of that, right? Things like healing potions, stuff like that. It's sort of I'm going to trust that you've got it in there and you're going to take care of that. In this campaign, I don't worry about counting your arrows or things like that. That gets really nitty gritty and tedious. We kind of hand wave all that stuff. It's assumed that you're stocked up on arrows and all that sort of thing. So don't worry about that too much. But things like healing potions, which you have a limited number of, that I'm expecting you to keep track of. Okay.
Okay.
You've also had a place for currency there. As you can see, there's gold pieces, platinum pieces, silver pieces, copper pieces, all that right there. I typically give my players 100 gold pieces to start, just so you have a little money to play with right at the beginning. You can spend that on healing potions, magic items, all sorts of stuff, new armor, weapons, things like that. And typically at the end of every mission, you're going to get gold as a reward. And so that's where you keep track of that. Okay.
Okay.
Um, Other important things. This These four things right here, these characteristics, are more for the role playing side, right? So you're playing a character that has a personality and flaws and bonds and ideals and motivations, things like that. Um, they're important. However, mechanically in the number crunchy part of the game, you're never going to need to click right here, okay? This
Oh,
is
okay.
for this is for your information, and so I encourage you, any notes that you want to put to yourself regarding how Nudis might act in the game, as you're kind of role playing this character, this is all for you, okay? Um, don't feel limited by these, and they are completely free for you to edit and develop Nudis's personality however you want. Use these however you deem fit. Okay, I have a lot of players that will leave these blank entirely, and they just say, I'm just going to kind of wing it and play the character how I want, and however he comes out, he comes out. I have other players who write full blown like novels in these spaces for their own use. So whatever works for you as the player right there to help you remember how you want to role play, that space is all yours. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Um, Down here, the features and traits is probably the other most important part of here. This is where, again, all of the nitty gritty abilities and mechanical things that you have are going to show up, okay? So right off the bat, as a rogue, you've got sneak attack. You can click on these words and make them appear and disappear, just like that. And it will detail exactly what sneak attack says and how that works. It'll tell you exactly what thieves can't is and how it works. It'll tell you what fury of the small is, your racial bonus right there, how that works, okay? So as you level up and you gain access to new abilities and features and traits, all of that's going to show up right here. Again, you can edit that and type whatever you need to if you have sort of a customizable one or you want to copy and paste. And if you want it to show everybody else, you can just click on this little chat bubble and it'll pop up right in chat. Okay? So I
Okay.
definitely encourage use of this features and traits. Again, it's very useful for keeping track of all the things that your character can do. It's very cool stuff. There's other things that you can use up here. There's a short rest and a long rest button. They're not great, but you also have resources. So if you have an item with charges or anything, um, that's where you're going to keep track of that. I like to make one for tea leaf points for people. We can talk about that a little bit later. But again, if you find something you need to keep track of a numerical something, there's those boxes. You can always make more boxes there. They're there for your use. A lot of this is custom tailored to whatever works for you, and you're gonna find what works and what doesn't work for you as you play and kind of tinker around with the sheet a little bit. There's two more pages.
Okay.
uh, this second page is your bio sheet. Again, it has a lot of information up here about your character's physical appearance. And I can see you filled in all sorts of stuff about the eyes and the skin and the hair and the weight, the age, all that sort of stuff. Again, all for the role playing side of it. It's more the fluff side of stuff. Again, which is important. I don't mean to sound like fluff is not important, because it is. And the more fleshed out your character is, the more love and attention and detail you put into your character, I feel the more fun you're going to have with it. But again, mechanically crunchy playing the game, all that is in our imagination. The character sheet's more for the function of the actual mechanical dice rolling type stuff of the game. So again, all that is information for you, which again is important. Any notes you want to keep there. This whole page right here is a whole lot of empty space where you can put whatever you want. You can put some backstory stuff there. You can put appearance stuff there. You can take notes here about different NPCs, different allies, organizations. I like to use this treasure one for like magical items. You got a whole box for additional features and traits, although this one will scroll, like it'll kind of become a scrollable thing as you fill it out. So you don't really run out of room there. But again, you got all this space here that you can use however you see fit. The last page is all for spells. And so rogues typically aren't a spellcasting class, but if you were going to have spells and spell slots, things of that nature, all of that information is going to show up here, including your spellcasting ability, your spell save DC, and your spell attack bonus. What's beautiful about Roll20, I'm going to go back to the first page for a minute, is all of this is compatible with that compendium that we talked about earlier, okay? So if you ever want to add something to your character sheet really quick and easy, you can search it in the compendium. So right off the bat, I'm just going to make something up off the top of my head. Let's say Nudis is adventuring and he finds a longsword, right? You can type in longsword right here. You can grab this, click and drag, and it'll say accepting drop from compendium. Boom. I've got a longsword in my inventory. Do I have a longsword in my inventory? Why didn't it work? Hello? Stand by. Compendium compatible. I'm lying to you.
If you popped out the character sheet to another window, it won't work.
Gotcha. That's probably it.
It was also 2024 rule set that you were trying to pull.
Yeah. Why doesn't it want to give him
By the way, hi everybody.
Hi. Oh, I see what I'm doing. I'm sorry. That's the weapon proficiency. Okay. So if I grab this item, longsword, sorry about that. Boom, that's gonna automatically put the longsword in your inventory. It's also smart enough to make your attack macros there, right? So if you want to attack with your longsword, it's right there. But we don't have a longsword, so I'm just gonna get rid of those really quick, just so you're not confused. But again, super easy, convenient. Say you want to learn Misty Step, you look up the spell, click and drag. Now go to my spells. Boom, Misty Step shows up. It's all interchangeable, compatible with that compendium. So I highly suggest getting familiar with that compendium and just using that click and drag feature. I will say, my compendium's a lot more fleshed out because I've bought a lot of the books and stuff from Roll20. If you're just starting out and you haven't bought those books or you don't want to spend the money because, it's money, you can always custom make things. You can custom make macros. You can custom make features and traits. You can go on a website like D&D Beyond or the D&D Wiki, copy and paste, and put whatever you need to in any of these fields right here, and it's all going to show up and interact and make your macros just like dragging from the compendium. So I would say use the compendium where you can. If you can't find something on the compendium and I'm online or whatever, you can just ping me and say, hey, do you mind dragging and dropping the goblin racial traits onto my character sheet? It takes me 30 seconds to do. I can do that for you. Or if I'm not available or you want to do it yourself, find it online, copy and paste it right onto your sheet. Everything's good.
Sweet.
The last little thing here is the sort of clunky settings page right here. A lot of this is more on my end just to make sure everything's good. I wouldn't worry too much about all of this right now, but again, if you really want to dive in and get to the nitty gritty of it, you can kind of go in here and mess around a little bit and kind of do some cool stuff there. I just like to mention that there are settings that you can change to make your character sheet more customizable and things like that. But yeah, so I'd say for the most part in the game, you just try to describe what you're trying to do. I will tell you what relative check to make or what roll to make. You're going to click on that word or that saving throw or that attack. The dice rolls show up in the chat, and then I tell you what happens next. And that's pretty much the magic of playing D&D. It's very, very straightforward once you kind of get the hang of it and know where to click. That's the hardest part of it. Well, the hardest part is getting this character sheet all set up, then knowing where to click, and then the rest is just all imagination and make believe, and it's super fun. I will say, as a brand new player, I the best way to learn how to play D&D is by watching other people play D&D. And so I highly encourage any new player of ours to either check out a live stream on Twitch, which I know in your case, Sam, is a little hard because you're coming up and playing on this Thursday. But we do have our YouTube channel where we have all of our old missions and stuff. So if you're kind of curious about how the flow of things goes and how the game works and when do I talk, when do I not talk, you can watch one of those older videos just to kind of get a feel for how the game runs. You can kind of see how the map moves and how the dice rolls and all that sort of show up. That's the best way to learn. The
Okay, yeah, I
other
definitely joined a couple times watching on Thursdays. So
Okay, cool. That's awesome. The other thing I will say is don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're in the middle of the game and you're panicking and it's your turn and you have no idea what's going on, it happens, right? Especially you're live on stream for the first time, you're playing with people you don't really know. It can be intimidating, and I totally get that. Do not be afraid to stop, ask questions, kind of interrupt me, and you'll learn as you play. I know it's kind of it sounds a little harsh sometimes, but generally I think watching people play and then learning by doing and seeing what works and feeling awesome for getting that killing blow on that dragon, it helps you remember what your character's good at, how to do things, and how to kick ass. The rest of it is really just as much or as little as you want to put in. I have some players that are super, super into the role play, and they could care less what we're killing that day as long as they're around good company and having laughs and making people laugh. It's such a good time. I have other players that are very, very into the strategy and into the nitty gritty number crunching, optimizing, making my character as powerful as possible. And I have plenty of players that are into both. Me personally, I love both. I love having a really powerful character that has a really powerful personality. Your mileage is you get in what you put out, right? So if you want to invest the effort and the time to kind of create a very fleshed out character, I'd say typically those players have a lot of fun. And if you're more of sort of I'm going to kind of take the back seat, let other people do the talking and focus more on killing shit, totally valid playstyle too. And we accept both. Again, this game is for you. So however you want to have fun with it, that's how we do it. A couple of sort of ground rules, I would say, and I say these again to just every player because they're important. This is streamed live on Twitch, and so it's 18 plus. So I mean, if you want to make dick jokes or drop an f bomb, totally fine. Again, it's expected, right? We're all adults here. Keep all the isms out of it. Obviously, don't be a dink is kind of my general rule. I kind of use like the once verbal warning of like, hey, don't do that again. And the second time, we're just gonna remove you from stream. I've never had to do it, but just as a warning. And again, I'm not anticipating any problems at all. But just to say it, we have terms and services we have to comply with. So just know that it's you are on the internet and you just got to be mindful of that.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
the other thing I will say is it is a team game. So you're going to be playing with 4 other players plus me. So I'm the DM plus you have a party of 5 basically. And it's expected that your character and your play style is conducive to a team game, if that makes sense. Certain characters can kind of come across as like the broody sort of lone wolf, don't need anybody's help, kind of edgelord. That it's a fun character trope, right? It exists in so many fantasy novels because it's so popular, and that's fine. However, you also need to ensure that you're playing as part of a team. Now, that being said, sometimes in even the most tight knit of teams, there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be situations where I think it should go one way and others think it should go another way. And that's okay as long as it's resolved, in the game, civilly, fairly, all that stuff. And it's mostly my job to make sure that that happens fairly. Um, but just again, I just say that as a warning to make sure that some people have this idea that they're going to come in and be the superhero and the rock star and don't need anybody, and it's not a very chill vibe. Again, as the DM, I try to make sure that everyone has their moment in the limelight, and when you're playing to your strengths and kind of staying in your lane, your character's going to feel awesome because that's the fun. You want to feel like a badass. You want to feel like a superhero. But also, we want to encourage everybody on the team to also feel badass and also like a superhero where they should, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, playing a rogue, I'm going to use this nudist as an example. Playing a rogue, if we need someone to really sneakily go and pickpocket the key off the guard so we can get into the prison, absolutely Nudist's moment to shine, right? Like, Nudist should be the rock star in that situation. However, if there's a magical potion concoction thing that has this alchemy book and Nudist isn't really a wizard or anything, and you've got a wizard in the party, I definitely, encourage the people who are good at that sort of thing to do their assigned role. I say assigned roles, but lean to your strengths again. I think D&D is the most fun when you kick ass in your role and you can rely on your party members to kick ass in their roles. And then everybody's kicking ass and everybody's having a good time, everybody's laughing. It's a whole lot of fun. And again, I sound all sort of like intimidating, like there's all these hard press rules and everything. Um, Again, every game's a little bit different. Every adventure's a little bit different. You're gonna kind of find your step and make friends with different players and characters and stuff, and figure things out as you go. It's all about having fun. And I definitely encourage not only asking questions, but then after the game, if you have any questions or feedback or things like that, I'm usually very, very responsive. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. I actually really like feedback from new players because everybody's playstyle is a little bit different. So if you had things that happened that you really liked, feel free to let me know. If you were uncomfortable with any situations or you were confused or if you weren't having fun, that's an issue for me because my job is to make sure everyone's having fun. So if something was unfun for you, don't be afraid to let me know. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm just going to make sure that I correct that for future games. Um, I've been doing this, God, TAC's going on for almost 5 years now in April, I think. So I have a pretty good feel for how to read the room and understand, what makes people tick and what's fun and what's not fun. And I will say some sessions are just more fun than others. I've had sessions where everyone was having a good time and everyone was into it and everyone's laughing and super intense. I have other sessions where the vibes just weren't there, and sometimes you get through the mission and you're like, okay, that was a game. And that's perfectly okay. Not every single one is a rock star, but the ultimate goal is everybody has fun. So if you're not having fun, that's important to me. Just let me know. We'll work it out. Jen or Mark, do you guys have any other advice or tips or things we should talk about as sort of a
I mean, I just got here because I just got home from work, but
okay?
literally, like what Luke is saying is right on the nose. Everyone has their own style and everything else like that. Like I'm trying to DM a game for Luke so that he can take a break and sit back. So I'm working on that myself. But yeah, play to your strengths, play to your play style, and with your first character, like if you're into the role playing, make sure it's a character that you feel that you can understand, like reachable goals, right? Luke brought up the broody edge lord kind of characters. Well, More than likely, he's assuming me because I'm the one with the 2 broody characters.
Never.
But I play them in a way where, yeah, they're broody, they're emotional, but they're emotional for realistic reasons. And when something happens, they still make a connection to the other players and things like that. So, yeah, I got the role of the anime protagonist once, and it's just like, yep, sure, but I accentuate and I put other people up on the pedestal as well when it's really calls for it. And my character's made plenty of mistakes. I've failed stealth checks and started encounters, and own up, own those failures.
Oh,
Own those
honestly,
failures because the failures are
failing.
better than the successes.
I was just gonna say, honestly, so often failing saving throws or failing checks makes the game even more fun than succeeding. It's
Yeah.
it's it's the dice tell the story, and you just got to kind of roll with the punches and make things happen and just go with the scenario. It's such a fun game. This is the best game ever made. Um, I really believe that everyone should play D&D at least once.
And
So,
speaking of extremely dumb, stupid things, Luke, I
hmm
do need a folder and access to the DM thing so I can start working on my maps.
yeah, I got you. I have that.
And can I go -5 tea leaves to make an adventure tier?
Absolutely. Yeah, just
Sweet.
throw that in the lab
I'm
for
gonna
me,
throw it
and
in
we
the
can.
lab then. I'm gonna start working on that now because I'll have one hero, one adventure, one beginner.
There you go. Awesome. All right. Jen, can you think of anything worth mentioning
Uh,
that I haven't already mentioned?
you didn't go over tea leaf points, did you?
I did not. Okay. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
this is
Our magic
something
gambles.
that's yes. So tea leaf points are a specific thing just for this campaign. So if you go and play D&D with anybody else and you start talking about tea leaf points, they're going to look at you like you have 5 heads. But basically, we've created this sort of in-game currency mode to sort of keep track of your status and also reward players for playing consistently. So if you noticed when I was talking about your resources, I made this little tea leaf point box here for you. Um, so the way it works is for every successful mission that you complete, you're going to earn 1 tea leaf point. Okay. So the more missions you go on and successfully complete, I say successfully because there's a very rare chance that missions fail, in which case I don't give the tea leaf point. I think we've only had 2 or 3 failed missions in all the 5 years, but it happens. It's very rare, but it can happen. Um, you can spend those tea leaf points on a few different things. Number one, you can use them to basically re-roll any dice roll affecting your character. Whether it be I need to re-roll a saving throw so I don't die, or I want to re-roll my attack roll so I hit the guy instead of miss. You can use them to re-roll anything. You can use them to play more often. And so being a West Marches campaign means that no one week is going to have the same 5 characters. It's very rare that they do, except for Hero Tier, but that's a whole different thing. But if you go into the Discord, I have under the West Marches section, there's a priority standing list. And you can see I have every player, all their characters, and then what tier they are. So I've separated the characters into beginner tier, adventurer tier, and hero tier. So that way, a level 1 character isn't going to be playing with like a level 7 character because that's no fun, right? The level 7 character is just going to steamroll everything and make the level 1 character feel super weak. So you're always playing with characters that are about the same level as you. So beginner tier is level 1 through 4. When you hit level 5, you jump up to adventurer tier, which is levels 5, 6, 7, and 8. Level 9, you jump up to hero tier. So every, early in the week, typically Sunday, Monday, I'll call out, hey, it's going to be a beginner tier mission. Here's my 5 players. And then if you can make it, you confirm. Hooray. If you can't make it or just don't feel like playing that week, again, no penalty. You can skip it. But basically, every time you play, you're going to get bumped all the way down to priority 3. And then every week that you don't play, you go back up to priority 2 and then priority 1. So typically, players are playing anywhere between every like 3 to 5 weeks is typical how often you're gonna play. But you can spend your tea leaf points to bump your priority. So if you are loving it and you want to play more often, you can pay a tea leaf point to jump from priority 3 to priority 1 and lock in your spot for that week. So It's rare that it happens, but sometimes people do it. Sometimes I'll be like teasing a particular plot that we're going to do on a certain week, and if you're really invested in that plot and you want to be a part of it, spend the tea leaf point. The other things you can use tea leaf points on are we do almost like a DKP system. I don't know if you ever played like old school World of Warcraft or EverQuest or anything like that, but you can basically bid those tea leaf points for magic items that you get for successful missions. And so if you bid the points and you bid the highest, you'll subtract those points and you get the magic item as a reward. If you bid but you're outbid, just like a real auction, you're not going to spend the money if you didn't get the actual reward, so you keep those points. So that's a good way to get magical items early on to get more powerful. And then if you save up 10 of these bad boys, you get what's called a backstory mission, which is where you and I will sit and talk one-on-one about your character, their backstory, and come up with a mission that's like custom tailored for your character, where you're going to be the superstar, and you actually get to pick what other 4 people come with you and to go on that backstory mission. They're some of my most favorite to run because I custom tailor them to my players, and I know, I try to build them specifically for how I've watched them play and what I think they're going to enjoy the best. And you get to actually kind of work with me a little bit to build it and come up with ideas and stuff. So those are a lot of fun. So kind of like my early game, like short-term goal for new players is see if you can save up for your first backstory mission, because that's typically where things really, really start to turn on for people and they start to really, really get invested in this. The Tea Leaf Invention Company really is like a small little family, and we've had a lot of people come and go, but the people that stay are genuinely some of like the best friends I have in my entire life. It's such an awesome, awesome group of people. Um, we have a lot of laughs and cries and good moments together. It really is a blessing. It's such an awesome game and an awesome group of people. So
It definitely seems like a really, really I don't know. It seems like such a unique group that you guys have going. I haven't seen anything else like it, to be honest. So really
yeah,
excited to get involved.
I'm so looking forward to this. I always love fresh meat. I mean, new players to come in and play. Um, and again, you're gonna do great. I'd say just be yourself. If you have any questions at all, you can always message me or interrupt me in the game, and everything will go smoothly. Um,
Sweet.
Is there anything else you want to go over or repeat while I've got you here?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, well, if you think of anything, just shoot me a message and I'll be happy to help you and hop on, and I can take some screenshots and stuff too. But for the most part, that's everything on your character sheet and where to click and how to play the game.
Sweet. Thank you so much, you guys.
No
Mhm.
problem. Thanks for taking the time, and thank you for being our test subject here for the video. I
No problem.
appreciate it. Mhm. Alrighty then.
All right.
Well, I'm gonna actually prep Monday or Thursday's mission now, so I'm gonna hop off.